Greetings, Dr. Dostalik. Daniel Hoffman, and my colleague Adam Zajačik have chosen for our presentation a topic, Battle of Warsaw, also known as a miracle on the Vistula, which was a decisive battle of Polish-Soviet war which concluded in final defeat of Red Army. We have divided our presentation into 4 paragraphs. The first one is introduction and prelude. The second one is the battle plans, The third one is the course of the battle, and the final one is consequences of the battle. I will talk about the introduction and prelude and the battle plans, and my colleague Adam will talk about the course of the battle, which is subdivided into 3 phases, and the consequences of the battle. So let me begin with the introduction and prelude. The Battle of Warsaw was a battle during the Polish-Soviet War. It was fought between the 12th and the 25th of August in 1920 and ended up with the Russians suffering defeat. On the Soviet side, 15,000 died, 500 were missing, 10,000 were injured, and 66,000 were taken as prisoners of the war. The Polish losses were far less. It was 4,500 Polish soldiers died, 10,000 were missing, and 22,000 were injured. Both the Bolsheviks and foreign powers had expected Poland to be easily defeated. The victory of the Poles paralyzed the Bolshevik forces, and in the following months, several Polish victories secured Poland's independence and eastern border. The Polish-Soviet War ended with the Riga Peace the following year. In the aftermath of World War I, Poland fought to preserve its newly regained independence, lost in the 1795 partitions of Poland, and to carve out the borders of a new multinational federation from the territories of their former partitioners, Russia, Germany, and Austria-Hungary. Under the leadership of Pilsudski, the Second Polish Republic was proclaimed as armistice on the 11th of November in 1918. However, the country's borders were not finally determined until 1921. After the Polish victory in the Polish-Soviet War, Poland's borders were disputed. In the east, they were drawn much further east than the so-called Kherson Line, which was the proposed border before the war. This led to Poland gaining a significant Ukrainian and Belarusian minority. At this time, the Bolsheviks were also gaining the upper hand in the Russian Civil War after inflicting some heavy defeats on the Whites. Vladimir Lenin considered Poland necessary to be able to exert influence over the rest of the Europe and spread communism to the West, especially in Germany, where, among other things, the Bavarian Soviet Republic had been established. In the Bolshevik agitation, it was claimed that the shortest way to Berlin and Paris was through Warsaw. Both sides took part in the Polish-Ukrainian War, and in the spring of 1920, the Polish forces had to withdraw. The fighting was, in fact, continued as the Polish-Soviet War. On the Soviet side, it was hoped that if Warsaw fell, this would not only lead to the destruction of Polish fighting morale, but also that it could trigger communism uprisings in the West so that the Red Army could support the communism uprising in Germany in particular. Under the leadership of Semyon Budyonny, Soviet forces broke through the Polish lines of defense in June 1920. Now I will move for the battle plans. I have divided the battle plans under the Polish plan and the Soviet plan. I will start talking about the Polish plan. Initially, the Polish strikes went in the lines of defense established by Germany during the First World War. Pilsudski's plan was to stop the Soviet advance on his left flank and establish a headquarters at Buk and Brest-Litovsk, but this plan collapsed when this area immediately collapsed. Then the Polish plan was to split the Soviet advance in the middle, where there were also opportunities to get some help from geographical factors. By August, Pilsudski had established a headquarters in Belvedere, and there was great uncertainty as to how the forces would be distributed, so that the flanks gained the necessary strength while the defense of Warsaw was adequate. Since Pilsudski personally wanted the command at the front, there was a great risk that he could be taken prisoner of war or killed or be killed. To prevent this from paralyzing the political decision-making power, he deposited his resignation as head of state and commander-in-chief with the prime minister. The Polish
Dear Mr. Dostalik, my name is Adam Zajačik and I'm going to continue on the topic my teammate already uncovered. Please excuse my pronunciation of the Polish names since I have not been in contact with the language. Now about the course of the battle. Ahead of the battle, the 4th Soviet Army moved according to its battle plan across the Vkra River and up to Włocławek. The 15th and 3rd Army moved in the direction of Modlin Fortress, and the 16th Army moved directly towards Warsaw. At the same time, on August the 12th, the Soviet 16th Army launched an attack on Rajmin, just 23 kilometers eastern of Warsaw, and captured the city next day. These initial advances for the Red Army forced Pilsudski to push through his plans by 25 hours. Now let's talk about the first phase. The first phase of the battle consisted of the Soviet attack on the city. This was launched on 12th of August with a supportive attack of the Polish bridgehead in Prague district. At the same time, the fighting raged back and forth in Rajmin. And in this situation, all foreign diplomats left Warsaw except for the representatives of Britain and the Holy See. When Rajmin fell, the lines of the Polish Fifth Army under the command of Władysław Sikorski were broken and had to fight on 3 fronts. The following night, however, a Ulan regiment managed to break through the Soviet lines and came to the aid of the 5th Polish Army. At the same time, the Ulan regiment managed to destroy a radio station at Tsikhanov that belonged to the Soviet 4th Army, leaving it with only a single connection that had only one frequency, which the Polish intelligence service was able to intercept. In order not to reveal that the Soviet code had been violated, the Warsaw radio station blocked this frequency by broadcasting Genesis readings in Latin and Polish, thus preventing the 4th Soviet Army from receiving Tukachevsky's order to move south. The second phase of the battle consisted mainly of the Polish counterattacks. The Red Army's 27th Infantry Division reached the village of Izabelin, only 13 kilometers of Warsaw itself, but this was also proven to be the closest the Red Army was ever to reach the capital. Due to failing communication and self-willing Soviet commanders, Tukachevsky believed that everything was going according to plan, while his forces instead fell into the Polish trap. As a result of the political intrigues of the Soviet leadership and a conflict between Alexander Yegorov and Tukachevsky, Budyonny this time failed to follow Tukhachevsky's order to advance towards Warsaw from his position on the southern flank, and instead weakened it by turning and moving eastern to come to the aid of Joseph Stalin, then commissioner on the southwestern front, in his attempts to capture the besieged Lvov. The third phase. The Polish counterattack began on August 14, and the fighting for the small town of Nasielsk led to the Polish takeover of the devastated city and the next day. On the same day, Rajmin was also recaptured, which was very encouraging for Polish fighting morale. Furthermore, Sikorsky's Fifth Army managed to push the Soviet forces away from the Warsaw area, where all of Poland's tanks and armored vehicles were deployed, including 2 Polish armored trains. The Polish advance was fast, up to 30 kilometers a day. The third phase of the battle is characterized by the fact that the Polish forces, according to their battle plan, pushed the Soviet attack force in the center back from Warsaw and thus created a large gap between the Soviet front lines. As early as the evening of 16th of August, the Polish forces recaptured Wlodlawa and severed contact with the Soviet 16th Army. Pilsudski was also surprised at how quickly they managed to repel the Soviet forces, as the advance was up to 70 kilometers in just 36 hours. For the Soviet forces on the flanks, it was impossible to continue the fight, and the southern flank was already greatly reduced as a result of Budyonny having already left the area. The Polish forces took full advantage of Soviet confusion and weakness. Tukhachevsky was headquartered in Minsk and realized on 12th of August that the attack on Warsaw had failed, and ordered the Red Army to withdraw for reorganization, to improve logistics and halt the Polish advance. However, the isolated 16th Army had to surrender to the Poles, while in the center there was a complete chaos. Some divisions tried to fight on against Warsaw, while others fled in panic. Tukhachevsky had lost contact with most of his forces, and only the 15th Army had sufficient contact and was set to secure the right of retreat to the 4th Army, which was further west. On 21st of August, all Soviet resistance was over and the main force had withdrawn over the Bug. On 31st of August, the last forces from the northwestern front were also withdrawn completely. Now, let's talk about the consequences of the battle. Although the Poles managed to repel the Soviet attack, the strategy itself had not been entirely successful, as the Soviet forces had to succeed in advancing further than expected. The Soviet defeat was a great defeat for the Soviet leaders involved, among them Lenin. Furthermore, it bottomed out plans for aid to communist uprising in Germany in particular, but also in Lithuania. For the Polish self-awareness, however, the victory was very important, especially after the defeats in Ukraine, and paved the way for the end of the Polish-Soviet War through the Peace of Riga, which was signed on 18th of March in 1921.